seems like it's been quite a while since we met last November. So many of you joining us today were with us as we enjoyed hearing from alumna Susan McIntyre as she shared her experiences while living in Afghanistan. So through this wonderful virtual world, we'll travel from Afghanistan to Greensboro today to learn more about the evolutions of libraries with Dean Michael Crumpton. I know it'll be fascinating to learn how libraries have evolved over the past years, and we'll be anxious to hear your comments about the experiences you had while at WC and UNCG. Today, we have over 90 attendees joining this webinar, and we'll open the floor for questions after Mike's presentation. So know that we'll recognize you via the chat feature or by raising your virtual hand. At the end of Dean Crumpton's presentation, we have a special treat for you. We'll have a short show and share by the interim of UNCG Special Collections and archivist Kathleen Smith. So now I'm pleased to open our program by introducing our guest speaker, Michael Crumpton. Mike serves as the Interim Dean for the University Libraries at UNCG. Mike received his BS in Business Administration at the University of Central Florida in Orlando and received his Master of Library Science at the University of Kentucky in Lexington. He has a lot of responsibilities, but in a nutshell, he is responsible for overseeing UNCG's library operations and services with the team of librarians and staff. He's an affiliated faculty member for the Department of Library and Information Studies, as well as a certified human resources professional. He is the editor of the Journal of Learning Spaces and past president of the North Carolina Library Association. In the recently approved 2022 state budget, UNC Greensboro was awarded $81 million to renovate and expand the beloved 71-year-old Walter Clinton Jackson Library. Named after UNCG's third chancellor, it's the most popular venue on campus with 10,000 visitors daily and 1.25 million visitors annually. With this great news, I know that Dean Crumpton will have some wonderful insights for us today. Mike, I am so excited for this conversation. There is a lot going on, and what an exciting time for UNC Greensboro and for you and your team.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today. Appreciate the attention, and good afternoon. What I'm going to do today is take you through some of the history of what we've done since I've been here. I came in 2007 when we did the first space assessment of the library in order to modernize it somewhat. I'm going to take you through some of the reasonings behind the concepts and the assessments and what we've learned about students. And that includes trends within the library profession for academic libraries in particular. And I'm going to end up with talking about the master space planning process that we did a few years ago, how that turned into the renovation budget that we have just been awarded, like Mary alluded to, and where we go from here. And behind me are some of the renderings from that master space planning process that we did a few years ago, and you'll see them again toward the end of the PowerPoint. This is me on a PowerPoint slide, so I'm not going to go through all that, but just to give you a little bit of idea of where I'm coming from. And the books on the right are books that I've worked with faculty members both in LIS and the library to kind of pay forward some of the information that we've learned and gathered in this profession. But what I really want to talk about is not me, but I want to talk about library spaces and how important library spaces are. Skipping to the end a little bit, I just want to share a conversation that I've had with our chancellor. Chancellor is a strong proponent of what we're doing here with the library. The library is for everyone, and that he wants us to be a keynote visual symbol of what UNCG is by renovating Jackson Library. So the concept of library as place and space is predominant in this profession, and so that's why we're trying to make the best of it. So I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly and just talk through the concepts. There's a lot of visual coming up on them, but I want to hit some of the major points. You're going to get the PowerPoint with the recording. So if there's ever any questions, you can always get back to me later. But the point about
Dean
library
Crumpton, I'm so
space,
sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can you please reshare your screen? You're not sharing your screen quite right now.
Let's see what happened. How's that?
There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so let me go back to the beginning. Okay, so there we are. Okay, and then that was a little about me. And then we're talking about the state of library spaces and why that's important. So let's talk about library space, because libraries are a lot of things, whether they're academic or public, but space is still an important part of what that's all about. But it's not just about storage or of a collection. There's new models now that talk about other pieces of what this profession's about. For example, electronic resources that can be engaged with virtually or on site. There's the volume, the quantitative volume counts that used to account for accreditation now include those electronics. There's learning assessments based on student outcomes that include library work. So actually some of the assessments done in the teaching process includes how much the library helps students obtain their academic objectives. So our space is shared with users. And so, and the point here is libraries traditionally had just been warehousing books, but now we're not only warehousing books, but also users and all the different things that users need. So that's why across the country, you see building additions, expansions, renovations. They're all part of what's happening in libraries today, especially academic libraries. So as a place, some of the things that get assessed and talked to, and LibCall is a professional assessment tool used by academic libraries in particular. People look for spaces that are inspiring, help motivate their learning. They're comfortable, inviting. When I first got here, we still had a lot of the old wooden chairs. That was part of the original setup, and they're not comfortable. People's comfort levels have changed. So that's a small example of things that we changed to make the library more inviting. And you want both quiet space for contemplation and the thought process, but you also want community spaces for group and collaborative learning, which a lot of your curriculum is driving toward. And the space study serves as a gateway and accessible for study in learning and research and related resources. So it's not just about one thing, it's about a wide variety and a diverse set of types of activities that happen. And there's also third place space, if you've heard of that. That was popular with some of the bookstores about 20 years ago. That whole concept that if you're not at home or you're not at work, you're in your third place, which is where you find your inspiration. So a library as a third place space can foster community spirit and involvement and encourage that creative and collaborative thinking. So you gotta make sure though your spaces are staying up to date, and age space can be very unappealing. And you want to look for ways to pull together appealing space that's going to bring people together and give them different options in terms of being able to work collaboratively or working individually as needed. User needs changed. Previously, we were more collection-based, and that's why I used the word warehoused. And the collection was selected and endorsed by faculty by a physical means typically. And there's a significant financial investment made in collecting print materials in particular. There's a life of a book type of concept that takes you through a book coming in, being processed and being maintained over the years. But the user needs now are focused more on supporting what they need to do to learn. And that's not just about the books. There's a lot of technology-driven attributes to assess needed resources. I mentioned before about the group study and the way assignments are being made in classrooms. You still need individual study and the tools to access materials electronically through technology. but you need financial resources that's going to cover both sides of that, because one thing that has happened with users is their needs have broadened. Some people still prefer the print book. Some people want the electronic resource. So we want to try to be something for all people, because they're all our learners, and we're not trying to force them into any particular mode of study. This is about the cost of space in the sense of maintaining print collections. They still have to be stored and retrieved, especially as your collections grow. We do have an offsite collection facility in the Ferguson building that we have to retrieve materials from as needed. But you also want to keep up with new technologies and the latest in furnishings, because today's student is looking for that. Today's student is a customer, and they've been out there in the market seeing other options. For example, the Genius Bar at the Apple Store. Our students know about that. When they come into the library, they're looking for something similar, because that's what they're used to as a consumer of manufactured goods. So limited funding forces libraries to make financial choices sometimes in terms of those different formats and different styles. But this is what students want. Students want a variety of different things. They need to have the small workplaces. They need access to being able to meet with tutors and experts in a learning space. They need table space for a variety of tools. Lab facilities. We have a super lab here in Jackson, which is always busy. The equipment and things and programming and things like that come along with what they're learning in the classroom need to be available. They need accessibility, for a variety of different needs like that. They need to be able to share screens and collaborate electronically with each other, and work. Group facilitation is something that's pretty new that comes out of this collaboration together. And these all came from Learning Spaces EduCause. So this is part of the trends that you see nationally across the country. With our campus plans and priorities, we're looking at an addition. So the master space plan is including about a 33,000 square foot addition to Jackson Library around the northwest corner. We identified this as a priority for UNCG. That's back to the Chancellor's support. It's expanding the tower for the book stacks that are currently not in great shape because they're not ADA compliant. So that's something that we've been under the radar for a long time. And much of the tower renovation is about life safety issues with new and updated codes. We want this to be a center of academic and student life. So we're positioned perfectly between the Student Union, the Elliott Center, and the dining hall. So we have a high volume of traffic and people who come through here as part of their student experience. There's a proposed entrance through the Super Lab into that west entrance to the traffic circle. So we'll become more of a crossroads across campus, going east, west, north, south. And that traffic circle, of course, is where your transit drop-off is. And then the public spaces of the library will be located close to that so that it's easy access getting in and out. A lot of conversation has been happening lately, especially about making room for these things to happen and what happens about weeding. And so no decisions have been made. I'm gonna start right there because we're in the process right now of selecting a designer. So I'll explain that a little bit more later. But these are some of the reasons that I put together previously about justifying weeding the tower so that we have room for these other things. And the point is we can't afford to just continue to grow and grow and grow without having some kind of modification to accommodate it. So the role of library space is really about bringing together readers and books in a variety of different ways. It's when you add in the librarians and the experts within the building, you kind of form an information counseling situation. One of the questions I think that's come up is about paraprofessionals involvement here. And we actually have a triage model of reference and consultation. So simple questions a lot of people can answer, especially now that Google is so prevalent. But other questions can be driven into the arms of a librarian or a subject specialist who can help negotiate the fine points of what the query is. There's a lot of social and technological networks that we manage through, and that helps find the right answer for information queries. And there's also the archive and preserve resources available that also becomes an area of information support. But a learning environment is about intentional learning. It's about knowledge transformation. The library can help facilitate that with the way it's designed for comfort and aesthetics. Nurturing relationships for staff and peers. I mean, they're part of that too. Fostering self-directed learning and creating new knowledge. And that's kind of the goal. The new librarianship is about connecting resources with people in order to create that new knowledge going forward. And you want all that to happen in a safe and non-threatening way. So we've done a lot of assessment over the years to gather information, to evaluate services provided, to be a partner in learning, so it's not done in a silo. And part of what's being considered is how we ask questions, what kind of methodologies we're using, and what kind of strategies are we using to report results. So some of the problem statements that we've looked at is we need to represent the point of view of stakeholders. Stakeholders, by definition, is anyone with an interest. So that's a broad range of folks. It's students, it's faculty, it's staff, it's community, it's alumni, and it's interested parties. So it's just about anyone in terms of how you want to put them together. We look at scope, we look at the focus on assessment activity. I'm talking about this because we're going to be doing more of it once we get a designer on board. We'll be assessing where we're at in terms of that original master space plan and where it's going to go forward. You have to consider history and background as well, because these are things to be considered as we go forward. Because we're looking forward, but we also want to bring what we did in the past with us. Should put this in the context of what our limitations are going to be. So that $81 million isn't going to get something, it's not going to get everything that we need. We are going to need support beyond that in order to flush it out and do it properly. And that open transit point is going to make a big difference in terms of how that community engages with the library. So the process is going to be is you have a group of folks from planners, architects, interior designers, the stakeholders I mentioned before, which includes donors and of course administration. These are the different players in how this space is going to look going forward. And the process is going to be programming. We did that with the master space plan. There was a certain amount of programming that was put in place in terms of the drivers or what we needed in a new library. But the first thing a new designer is going to do is what's called program verification. They're going to take all the information that's been put together before and apply that to whether or not it's still a priority or not. From there, they'll create some initial layouts for review by the various stakeholders. And then from that, they'll create these construction documents, which will then go out for bid for construction companies. And part of that is the protocols that's being in place for the state, professional standards needed within not just the libraries, but the buildings, and then codes and a variety of other governing issues like OSHA standards and things like that that need to be reviewed. So our space options or needs, I'm not going to read them. This is just kind of all the different things that we're looking for. And these are all the things that have come up in that master space plan that are desirable in a new library. And our stakeholders are very critical to us and how they treat our spaces and respect what we're trying to do. And so here are some photographs of what we're doing. You know, this is our circulation desk on the first floor, right outside the connector to the Elliott Center. And so that is there's no security guard, there's no gates or anything like that. We want everyone to come into the library and feel welcomed. This ramp is an accessibility ramp. That's the best we have right now, but that's expected to be on the list of things that need to be improved. And we're still undergoing the strategic planning part in terms of all the different things that need to be planned. That's the front of the library, which I think most of you know that. And then the right side is the view from in front of the Elliott Center and the tower. The expansion is going to be right there where those trees are, right in that area. And here's an aerial view. You know, then I'm just putting these in here just to make sure you guys know what we're talking about. And I wanted to share a few things that have been done. So like I said, we did that first space assessment plan back in 2008. From that, we were able to remodel. This is that third floor inset in the original building in order to have an environmentally controlled space for our special collections and rare books. This is also on that second floor. It's around that rotunda area is what the circle is. And the significance there is that as a women's college, we had very few men's rooms. So in doing that third floor, we had to add per code another men's room into the building. This is the first floor plan back then, and you can see we conceptualized the different components of what we needed back then, including areas in the super lab to the left, how access services looked coming through that connector, even a plan for a cafe, and across some of the other reference type of services on the right side. We've done the same type of thing with the master space plan in 2019, and we'll do that continuously going forward. This is a typical tower floor, and this is the original, or what it looks like right now. And one of the reasons I put this here is because those bookshelves are spaced tightly together, and that will have to change somewhat because they're not in compliance with code. This is the Digital Media Commons. We did a refresh on that this past summer. This is in the lower level of the basement of the main building, and that became one of the most hot spots when we first did it 10 years ago as a contemporary, inviting, welcoming space to young students. That's a configuration of the Super Lab, just to give you an idea of different options that can be done there. We have separated a room outside the Super Lab for instruction because our library instruction components grew. So we needed to be able to separate that somehow. So there's been progress over the years. These are some photos from the Knoll Studio in Eastern Kentucky, which is a model that we adapted building our digital media commons. Media production is very important. It's part of what goes along with our writing center and speaking center components to come in and have that rhetorical look at how to work on digital products. So we contribute, we pull out references and resources from a variety of different sources, so that we're not just making this up or just kind of going with what people are asking for. We are trying to tie that into the educational process and experience so that we're doing it in an informed way. But there are changes in functionality that we're addressing as we go through this process. Education changes, what happens in the classroom changes. Little things like, years ago we added food and drink, which was very unpopular to do, but that's what students want when they're in the library. They want to be able to bring in their coffee or their snack and things like that. So little changes like that over the years has impacted what libraries are. Now libraries build cafes in them, and potentially will be in our new one. Some of the things we've done over the years, which have been successful as it related to space, is, for example, the 24/5. We launched that in 2010 and was highly successful. It's been tapered down right now because of COVID, but I'm sure the new library will end up being a 24/5 space as well. Having social spaces with amenities is important. Having printing services and things like that that students need in their studies is important. Having common areas for a variety of different things like scanning and printing and production is important. So our role includes space. You know, we have the materials, we have the people, the librarians, the staff who help support this, but space becomes very important. So the master space planning, I'm toward the end here. This is actually some photos from, I came from Wake Tech. So this is the library at the North Campus of Wake Tech being built a few years ago. And I put that in there for the messy. But the drivers in our master space plan, you can see right here. Some of that's deferred maintenance and the current code that we were talking about, like with the book stacks being too close together. Increasing our study space because our student population has increased so much. Finding ways to incorporate student success in the library and what we do. Protecting our valuable resources, our special collections and archives. Having increased technology and technology support. Bringing in innovation and learning. We want faculty to be part of this and come to the library to do some of their innovative techniques in teaching. Supporting the library and community events with convening space, having digital scholarship areas, and then how all this incorporates in with the master space plan for campus. So these are just a few of the next few slides are just going to be shots of what this might look like. And I say might because remember I mentioned that program verification. There might be some changes once we get a new designer on board on what some of this is going to look like. But you can see it looks way different than the previous slides that I showed you. So that's what's exciting about it, is it'll be new space, it'll be space for today's student as well as yesterday's student and alumni. This is what that traffic circle entrance would look like potentially. And then inside of there with some higher ceilings and stuff like that, that adds to the aesthetics. And the branding is going to be important. Notice a lot of blue and gold is there for a reason. And it all will be much more accessible for those that need it. And so these are like the sketches behind me. That's that expanded area that we were talking about, the 33,000 square feet. And that's the other side. And so one of those cutout views, just to give you an idea. So library space is important. It's a place to do a lot of things: work, socialize, be inspired, be creative, convene, get together for collective and collaborative works, find information, learn how to self-educate as needed. And it's important these spaces are architecturally enhanced and inspiring and not just the same old, same old. It's clean and in good shape, has a modern contemporary feel to it, engages atmospheric conditions. That also helps create excitement. So where we are right now, the current status is, so we got the money. It's not as much money as was needed, but it'll get us going. The bidding process is currently underway for a designer. And once we get that designer on board, that's when we'll sit down and start making some decisions. We'll do that program verification. We'll determine what the priorities still are after 3 or 4 years since the planning process. The selection team is going through a list of 15 firms right now that have submitted huge documents in application for this. So we're expecting to have a recommendation to the Board of Trustees in late March. All we know right now is that the facilities planning group asked these designers to plan to build the first stage first, so that the building's going to remain open throughout all of this. But then the materials from the tower can be moved into the new expanded part while the tower is being renovated. So this is going to give us about a 5-year window, and completion won't be done until about 2027. And the program verification will update the previous work, as well as some of the desires that we want to put in front of them in terms of the things we want to do. There's already groups reaching out asking about the print footprint and options like that. So there's a lot of decisions to be made down the road, but it needs to be once everybody's at the table. So sorry that was really quick. What I really wanted to do was give you an idea of what we've done previously to be informed about the present. And so it's the future that's going to be so great, because there's just a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of decisions to be made. There's a lot of people to talk to and stakeholders to get advice from. We are going to be doing a lot of assessment as we go through there. And I'll be glad to come back and update you whenever possible. I do a series called Convene with the Dean, which I'll update the project every time we have one of those. So keep an eye out for that if you get our columns newsletter. But as far as questions, we have a few original.
We do. Mike, we do have some great questions, and I would encourage you, if you haven't already, put your question in the chat box or raise your hand. We'll get to you. Gosh, Mike, I think we all want to go back as students and experience this. This is great. You may have answered part of this talking about your triage model, but one of the questions is, how can students make full use of reference librarians and specialists? And the second part is, are paraprofessionals the main source of information at service desks, not professionals?
So, yeah, we did talk about that a little bit, in the sense that I talked about that triage model. So we have on service desk a variety of people: librarians, staff, students. And the idea there is to encounter somebody with a question and be able to address it in whichever way is needed. A lot of questions at the service desk are directional. Where's the bathroom? Where's the hall? That kind of stuff. So we want to make the best use of our librarians' time. But as questions escalate up the information ladder, they're going to be directed to whoever is either on duty or most equipped to answer it. Our librarians are also liaisons to various subject areas. So that makes them a subject expert in those particular areas. For example, Steve Kramer is our business librarian. So a very tough business question or research question related to business would end up getting directed to Steve, because he's the best equipped to address it. So we do have a network there. We also have electronic chat. So if you're not walking up to a service desk, you can always chat in your question. Same process happens. It's triage to the best person to answer that particular question.
Whole new world. Absolutely. Here's one that I really love. It's, are books still as important as they were last century?
I'm going to say yes. I have 3,000 of them in my own home. And but that's up for debate, in the sense of a lot of people who grew up with books cherish books, and they should. They're personal to them, and electronic resources aren't as personal, but they are more convenient. So in this day and age, we have to recognize the fact that electronic resources are going to be desired by many, especially students who aren't interested in reading a whole book, but maybe just looking for information or pieces of it. So I think books will always have their place. It might not be as dominant as it has been, but they will always be with us.
Fantastic. Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Other question is, as alumni, what input opportunities will we have, and when will this happen in the planning process?
What we're expecting to happen is, once we get a designer at the table, there'll be a series of assessments, and that that'll come in the form of surveys, focus groups, maybe even town hall meetings. I'm not quite sure yet because I don't want to speak for them. But that's typically what's expected out of the successful designer. We're expecting that once that designer is named, and I'm just going to say probably April is when we're going to be able to announce who that is. The rest of this year, this calendar year, will be in the planning process. And so that would include those assessment types that I just mentioned. So we'll have to find a way to communicate this appropriately so that people have a chance, if they're interested in weighing in, to weigh in. So it's coming, and we'll just have to be as transparent as possible to get there.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a great question and an important one for so many. Another one that we have is, I would like to discuss the possibility of dedicating a room or center to the Women's College history and legacy, a study center and mini museum. Can you speak to that, Mike?
Yeah, I think there's going to be several requests to do a variety of things similar to that. So I think that also will come once we get the designer at the table. At the table is going to be the successful designer, or design firm, I should say, our facilities design and construction people, state representatives, because this is state money and a state facility, us, provost office, chancellor's office, that kind of stuff. So once we get all these folks to the table, that's when we'll start looking at all the requests, all the options, and all the different decision points that need to be made, and then kind of start through the process of figuring out what we can and can't do.
Great. I think Alice Irby had asked that question, and she also raised her hand. So Alice, are you there? Sam, are we able to hear Alice? Give it just a second. Okay. Well, Alice, if you can hear us, we're going to come back to you. We'll go ahead and go to the next question. Oh, there you are. I see you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's all right. That's all right. Hello.
I just wanted to say to Michael how excited I am about this. I think I'm one of the older people in the group, and my first encounter with Jackson Library was in 1950. And that became my home for 4 years. I remember going into the front door, and the periodical section was on the right and the reference section was on the left. And the reference section had these comfortable chairs in it. So I would go over in the afternoon, the chairs were facing the window. I would study some, I would look out the window some, and I would sleep some. I would stay in the library until it closed. So it's very close to my heart. The Women's College is very close to my heart as well. And I would hope we would be able to find a space in the new library that could be dedicated to the Women's College, because after all, the Women's College was in effect the fountainhead of what UNCG has become. It gave it its motto of service. It gave it its values about open inquiry and debate. It gave its emphasis on access and upward mobility. So I would want a spot for people to know that history. And something like a rare books room, someplace that's quiet. I wrote down all of your criteria: study and learning, comfortable, inviting, community space, quiet space. That room could be that kind of space. I have a second reason for advocating this, and that is that many of the women's colleges of the day are now coeducational, but they have retained their name. Some, for example, Mary Washington was sort of a sister college. It's now Mary Washington University. Some of the Seven Sisters have become co-ed, but they have kept their name. Douglas College at Rutgers University is now a part of the university. It no longer has its own faculty, but it is a residential college within that university. I think the Women's College has gotten lost, and I'm delighted that there will be a tribute outside, but we need a space where people can learn about what was there and what the roots of what we have now. So I hope you can find a space, and I will do whatever I can to promote that. So one of my questions was, where do we go from here, and what's the next step for us, for those of us who are interested in this?
Yeah, I am aware that request is out there. So I'm going to say that what we need to do is get a kind of a proposal put together so that we're making sure that we understand all the elements, like you just mentioned, that need to be part of this. And then that would certainly be put at the table, like I said, with all the other things. But I think that proposal, if you vet it out with all the details that you mentioned, I think would have a good chance of coming out successfully in some form or fashion. It's just hard to say exactly at this point what it would look like.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Alice, for your very thoughtful questions and remembrances of Women's College. We have lots of questions, and so we'll keep an eye on the time. I hope we can get to all of them. But Mike, the next one is, please talk a little about the special collections and their contribution to the overall library content.
Well, special collections makes a great contribution to who we are as a library. I talked a lot about technology and a lot of the emerging technology, the electronic resources, all of that kind of stuff. But that's not for everyone. I mean, if we're going to be the library for everyone, we have to include those people who value what we have in special collections. We have some significant pieces, some significant rare books. And then the University Archives is the signature of the university and has the papers and the collections of our past chancellors and significant people. So they play a big role. They do that department does a lot of teaching of primary resources to students, and students are interested in that. They're interested in seeing the history and seeing the artifacts. So I don't have a number like a percentage, but I can just tell you that that department plays a strong role in who we are and what we teach from the library's perspective.
Thanks, Mike. And here's one I think that is asking you a little bit about how students feel today and use the library today. It's our undergraduates using the holdings in the library as much as we did in 54 through 58, or do they go there to study and use their computers?
Well, I'm going to say both. Admittedly, that the space becomes used a lot without maybe an indication that it was resource-based or something like that. Or if a student is sitting in the building, accessing on their laptop some of our databases or ebooks, we don't necessarily know that they were actually doing that in the building. But they're coming here. That's why I was trying to say the library as space can be just as important as the other components, meaning library as instruction or library as materials. I think it all blends together. Some of today's students, they will come, and I'm going to use the Digital Media Commons as an example. We have 3D printing and poster making and green screen technology down there. So some of contemporary students are coming in and utilizing those types of resources for current classroom assignments, because assignments have now transitioned into a virtual mode. So yes, some students come just for the space, but I would say a lot of students still come for the material, whether it's the books, whether it's digital media common technology, or whether it's electronic access while they're in the building. But it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great question. What will be done regarding training faculty about optimizing use of the updated library?
Well, they're going to be involved as a stakeholder group in terms of being at that table when we do the assessment or do the focus groups or hear what they have to say. We've already been talking to some faculty who've proactively kind of approached us about the print collection and their desires and concerns. So I would say that as new spaces become available, if it involves new technology or something that's different, there'll certainly be a process put in place, either as a tutorial or open house site visits or something like that, that's going to kind of try to educate all stakeholders, especially faculty, who we count on transmitting that to students. Wonderful.
Pam Mallister has asked or says it looks like the main entrance will be in the new expansion. Looks like yes. Is that correct? And if so, will the former main entrance still be open?
That when we say main entrance, we're talking about College Avenue.
I believe so. Yes, Pam doesn't say, but that would be my guess. Yes.
Yeah, College Avenue is part of the architectural design for campus, facing College Avenue and across from Stone Building. And so we've already had some issues with that door that have had to be repaired since I've been here. And the desire is to always get it repaired and functional as opposed to replaced. So I know that there's a strong desire to not change College Avenue. The connector going to Elliott, that will probably stay existing, even though that expanded piece will butt up to the exterior doors and wrap around. But then there'll be the new entrance into the west side, into the traffic circle. So that's the anticipation right now of how that will work. I would love to have another entrance going north toward the dining hall to redo our accessibility component, because the handicap parking is on that side. Mm-hmm. And that's one of my desires, but I can't say yet whether or not that'll actually happen the way I want it to or not. But there'll be more ways to get in the building. I'll leave it like that.
That's wonderful. We have two more that we'll get to as I look at our time. One is from Alice Brown, class of 65. And she says she's most impressed with the amount of activity going on when she visited several years ago, I believe probably for her 50th. What again is 24/5?
Oh, I'm sorry. So 24/5 means that from Sunday, when we open Sunday morning, the library stays open until I think it's about 8 or 9 o'clock Friday night. So we're open 24 hours for 5 days of the week is what that means. And we don't do it 24/7 because the weekends still don't have as much traffic as the weekdays. But that group coming back in Sunday night to get their work done or their reports printed or something like that is pretty consistent until Friday night. And then we shut down Friday night and Saturday night.
That makes good sense. Thank you. Alison Muss asked, will there be opportunities for individual alumni to donate funds to purchase a desk, chair, or other items in honor or in memory of someone? Many people want to contribute, but their ability to do that might be limited.
We've talked a lot about naming opportunities, and typically with that you do rooms, but in this case, because this has come up before, where we need to have smaller components, we are planning some kind of naming opportunity at a smaller level that would be kind of a carol or some kind of seating option or something like that. We're just not at that point yet, but it's coming.
That's good. That's a fair answer and a good one. So I think the last one, and I think we most got, just got another one. Let me check and just make sure. And then Alice says, Michael, thank you very much. I'm excited. There is no more important place on a campus than its library. For me, it is the heart of a good university. What a great way to end our segment today, right?
Yeah, very nice.
I love all the questions and all the interest. I hope that this is energizing for you as well, to know that we have so many alumni who are so passionate about the library and its future. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Dean Crumpton, for this wonderful presentation. And it is such an exciting time for UNCG and our greater community. And as promised, we'd love to have you return as plans unfold and progress. and we want to hear more about our beloved Jackson Library. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have a special bonus feature to conclude our time together today. And this is the 50th year celebration of the Martha Blakeney Hodges Special Collections and University Archives. And many of you know Emmy Mills, class of 61, a fellow Vanguard member, served as its first head of the department. So to celebrate this milestone, Kathleen McCarty-Smith, interim head, special collections and university archives and assistant professor. Kathleen, that is a long title.
It is. It's been a long year.
and outreach, I forgot the and outreach, will be sharing with us a peek into the archive. So I can't wait for this. I think this is such a fun thing to do to end the session today.
Well, and thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be here to spend a minute to speak to y'all, especially during our 50th anniversary year. And especially following Mike, not only because he is my boss, actually, but because he was speaking about our library building, which is my very favorite building on campus, and a building where in which I work, and that I think has such a rich history. So, and thank you. I want to thank y'all for a couple of y'all mentioning special collections and university archives, where I happen to work, and where we hold so many of these wonderful archives, archival papers, and artifacts coming from the Women's College. I encourage you to, if you've not visited us, or if you would like a tour of our stacks or of our wonderful material, to please come over and take a look. We would love to have you. So Mike, if I could get you to change the slide for me. Mike was talking about the future of the library, but I'm going to take you to the past for a minute and really kind of make a connection between what Mike was talking to you about and the past, because it really has a big connection, and that is the need for more space, because that's really driven the progression of the library on campus. The need for space and the need to adapt for the changing population of the school. So I'm not sure that y'all know that the first library on campus was a small room in what was called then the main building, but is now called the Faust building. So you see it right on screen now. That was a small building in Faust, and it was mostly populated with books given by the faculty. So if they had kind of an overflow of books, they would put it in this room, and this was called the library. And because of the growth of the school, soon we outgrew this building. And at the turn of the century, about a little, probably about 1900 or so, Charles Duncan McKeever, who was of course our first president, contacted philanthropist Andrew Carnegie and asked him if he would consider giving our school a library. And he did. He paid for the whole thing. And so in October of 1905, the Carnegie Library opened on our campus. Mike, could you change the slide? And I just wanted to show you, so that's how close it was. That is an early photograph of College Avenue, and you can see that you can see a peak of the Faust building, or what was still called the main building. So it was a short move from the main building to the Carnegie Library, which is right behind it. And then right behind that is the first Curry building. Okay, so if you could turn to the next slide. So there you go. So that is our Carnegie Library, the first library building on campus. Again, opened on October 2nd, 1905. And there you go. That is the inside of the building. It was a really beautiful building. And if you can see at the top, it kind of had a little place where it was opened to the second floor. A beautiful building where we were able to expand our collections as the population of our school expanded as well. Okay, next slide. You may not have known that a mysterious fire broke out in our library in September of 1932, about 3 a.m. one morning. We don't know what happened, but it did destroy a lot of the building and a lot of our books. You can see to the right what kind of destruction this actually had. It destroyed quite a lot of our books, and we still have books in our special collection that you can see are singed, but it was rebuilt, And we used that rebuilt library until 1950, when, as our college continued to expand, as did the need of our student population, we decided we needed a larger library. And Walter Clinton Jackson appealed to the legislature, and we got this, our what we have now as our Walter Clinton Jackson Library. Okay, Mike. And there it is now. So left, what you see is the Carnegie Library right about 1950, right before we left it. And right, you see the Jackson Library, or right before it was named the Jackson Library. It was just called basically the new library. You see that it was before we built the tower, because the tower was not built until 1973. And so we had to transfer all the books from one library to another. And the next picture shows us doing exactly that. I love the picture on the left, because what you see is the library books being transferred by truck in these, basically these canvas baskets that say library on them, from one building to another. You see that on the left. And on the right, you see Charles Adams, the librarian, putting the library books up onto our new shelves. And what I want to show you, I'm going to show you in a minute, is we have one of those old canvas library baskets in our special collections. That's what I really love, is that we can make this connection with history, not only through photographs that we have in our collections, but also these artifacts. We still have a lot of, well, I say a lot, but we still have some of the original furniture from that old library building, whether it's stools, whether it's chairs, whether it's old card catalogs. We still actually have some of that links to the past. And that is one of my favorite things about working in the archive, is that we still can see every day the links from that bring us from the current to the past. So I don't know whether we can change Mike to show actually what I have in my office. Can we do that? How can we do that?
I stopped sharing. So where's
Okay.
the camera?
Okay. Let's see. Can I do that? I've got my camera on, but how can I show what I have on the back? Uh-oh. Can I show that without? Oh dear, we worked on this today. We did a practice run.
All I see right now is your background.
I know.
Can you hold it up in front of the camera?
It is in front of the camera.
Kathleen, I know that's frustrating. Maybe you can just share with us what you have.
Well, it's actually the item I have with it's actually the item I have. I'm trying to figure out how to well, there's me. Hello. That is frustrating. Okay, let's see if I can put my basket instead of my face. Well, this is so aggravating. I'm holding it right in front of it. It's actually the basket. I hate these.
Yes, so you need to turn off the background image.
Yeah, I need to turn off the background image. We had done that today, Mike, and show me how to do that, Mike.
Go to your start video. Pull up that
Okay.
menu.
Yeah.
Choose virtual background, and you want none. Change it to none.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay, and for some reason I'm getting this a flipped version, like an ambulance version. But anyway, that is in my office, and I brought that for y'all to see, because this is what I have. So this is really one of those original baskets. As you see, we only have one left of all of them, but for some reason that this one was kept, and I'm so glad, because it is one of the original baskets that was used to bring those those books over. So I just love this. And it's great because not only we have it, but we have a photograph of it too. And these are the kind of things that we also bring out for not only exhibits, but for teaching. The students love to see these kind of things too. And it really kind of gives them a link from the past, and it shows them some, a continuity of their own campus. So I'm so glad I got that to work. So if we could flip back.
We are too. This was such a great way to end this session. And
Yeah.
Kathleen, we are so anxious to partner with you more as we celebrate the 50th anniversary. So this is
Yes.
great.
And there's, my last slide has a few things I'm going to shamelessly plug some anniversary programming we have this year. We have some lunchtime lecture series, which if you're interested, I will give some links to Mary. We have First Friday chats, which are on the first Friday at lunch of the month. And those are just some casual chats about material that we have in our archive. If you have any suggestions of anything you'd like to see, we would love to hear from you, and we could bring those things out. Social media post, we have a newsletter. If you'd like to sign up for a newsletter, if you're not already getting them, we'd love to send it to you. And we're having some articles come out in Campus Weekly. So all of these things are for our anniversary, and we're really excited about this year. And thank you for your patience with showing you that artifact that is taking up half of my office. So thank you so much.
It was our pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today. So we are out of time. We look forward to seeing you on the 15th of March, same date. And we'll be talking about education today and the Moss partnership that UNCG has and its success. And I think you all will find it to be a fascinating topic. So we'll be sending out reminders. Please tell your friends. We love having you. And also remember, for those that are unable to attend in person, this is recorded, and we will send this to all our registrants so that you can watch it again or watch it at your leisure. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. What a great group. Mike, thank you again. Kathleen, we appreciate it. So until next time, thank you all.